coming up next.
Everyone sort of in our society has you seeing that you don't have any power inside of you. It's all outside of you, you know? And I tell you, it's a very similar thing with faith. You know, the old saying, you shall have no other gods. You know, God wants us to see how wondrously we're made. And every time we look outside of ourselves for that power, it's like, no, it's here. But unfortunately, we don't live in a world that wants us to see that power, because if we were to see that power, all that stuff is redundant. We've got a whole supply and demand in society around us not being able to be sovereign creatures, not being able to be amazingly wondrous, energetic, because if we did see that, that would all be redundant.
Welcome to Faith Over Addiction podcast, where the chains of fixing and striving are broken and joy is rediscovered in Christ. You're here because you know there's more for you, a life beyond addiction's chaos, rooted in God's peace and promises. This is the place where Christian women like you learn to release the weight of fixing and striving and instead lean into God's strength to create a home filled with love, grace, and hope. She is clothed with strength and dignity. Proverbs 31:25. That's you. You may not feel like it yet, but you are stronger than you know. And God has so much more for you than carrying someone else's addiction. Here, we'll uncover how to set healthy boundaries with love and a little humor. Find resilience and grace in the messy moments of life. Celebrate small victories and embrace joy like never before. Lean into God's promises for restoration and strength, because He's not done with your story or your loved ones. This is your invitation to rise up, embrace your worth in God's kingdom, and take back what's been stolen by addiction: your peace, your joy, your future. Your faith is the foundation, and your boundaries are the bridge, and God's truth is your guide. I'm Tanya Gioia, your host and fellow traveler on this journey through the chaos of addiction. I'm here to cheer you on, equip you with tools that work, and share the truth that's changed my life. The joy of the Lord is your strength. Nehemiah 8:10. Together, we'll uncover how to create safe, loving space for healing, starting with your own heart and home. By setting boundaries, trusting God's plan, and embracing His truth, you can reclaim your joy, your peace, and your family's future. Then you will be able to stand firm for your family and legacy as a kingdom daughter, a woman who can laugh at the days to come, knowing her identity is secure in Christ. So grab a cup of coffee or tea and get comfortable. Let's walk this journey together. We're about to take back what's been stolen, create a safe, healing space for you and your family, and rediscover the joy God has waiting for you. Welcome to Faith Over Addiction, where we are looking at you and your identity in Christ and how you can be the best you can be to support those that you love who are struggling with addiction. And I have Tim Thomas with me today. He has a very big career, but one of the things that we're really going to focus on is sleep and breath work and resilience, because you know that if you don't get enough sleep, things fly out of your mouth. Things don't happen. All kinds of things are not going well. So Tim, tell us a little bit more about your background, because you have a pretty big career.
Well, sure. Well, I'll just speak to the sleep aspect. So my background is special forces. We didn't know anything about the science of sleep, but we knew that if we took the enemy's sleep out for 3 nights, that would mess them up better than a bullet. So you and I are both on pretty thin ice. You know, 1 night of poor sleep, that's the equivalent to brain damage. 3 nights, you're basically that person in a padded cell, not even comprehending what's going on. You think you're working hard, but you've just been reduced to this level of you know, zero. So my sort of, if I say, if that's the worst thing you can do to somebody, if that's something that you can do to someone that you hate, then really, if you care about somebody, you want to be doing everything you can to ensure that they sleep. So my piece of the wellness pie is helping people have the best night's sleep ever, and it's actually easier than you think. I was able to do this in the veteran recovery space after I went through my own PTSD. After I lost 6 years to pills, when I told a doctor I couldn't sleep, they throw a pharmacy at you when you say you can't sleep, and I can't get those 6 years back. I didn't know breath work, something simple as that, could kick out my racing mind, my intrusive thoughts, could alkalize my mind, my body, be an anti-inflammation for all my chronic pain. No one tells you this stuff because no one's making money from it. Everyone sort of in our society has you seeing that you don't have any power inside of you. It's all outside of you,
Mm,
you know? And I tell you, it's a very similar thing with faith. The old saying, you shall have no other gods. God wants us to see how wondrously we're made. And every time we
absolutely.
look outside of ourselves for that power, it's like, no, it's here. But unfortunately, we don't live in a world that wants us to see that power, because
Absolutely.
if we were to see that power, all that stuff is redundant. We've got a whole supply and demand in society around us not being able to be sovereign creatures, not being able to be amazingly wondrous, energetic, because if we did see that, that would all be redundant. However many billion cups of coffee, billion energy drinks, all these things depend on us not seeing our self-worth, not building our self-worth, not seeing the fact that your energy is like money. How you invest it is how you get it back. And if you really want to feel God's purpose in your life, it's actually quite simple. You have a unique energy signature that God put in you. And you've got something that you may invest, say, $100 worth of energy into, but you get like $1,000 back. Like, wow, that lights me up. That's bringing me more, joy, peace, love. And it might not be a comfortable thing, but it gives you a massive return. These are the things that when you're moving in the spirit, it might not be comfortable, it might not be familiar, but you just notice that energetic return. So just like you've got a shares portfolio and you're getting good returns from three and getting poor returns from three, well, what would you put more money into? Okay. And this
Yes.
is where we treat our own unique God-given energy signature, and how we invest it tells us how much we get back, tells us a lot of how God made us and the things that we're supposed to be doing in this world.
And I want to go back to something you said because we'll come to that empty cup piece. We can't give from an empty cup. We have to take that energy signature and go, okay, this fills me up. How do I give back from there? Those racing thoughts at night when you are laying there, you're taking the pills, you're doing what they tell you to do. That happens so often to folks who are looking after people. Well, are they dead on the street? Are they in the right place? Should I be answering my phone? What should I be doing? How do people begin to calm themselves when they're going through all those down scenarios?
Okay, great question, because your mind is like a garden. Whatever you water grows. And if you're watering the weeds of stress, they're going to grow and grow and grow until they get to a point where they don't just take over the garden, eyeballs pop out of them and they become sentient. They become aware of the things that you do that feed them, and they become aware of the things that you do that starve them. So these stress weeds in your head, they want you to be stressed. They don't want you to have peace. So you might know in your head the things that bring you peace, but do you think you can give yourself peace? No, because the stress weeds are running the show. So, and I'll give you what that looks like in real life. So, I had a COVID divorce, lost house, home, regular access to kids. I was sleeping on the couch of my parents' house. And you could bet at 2 a.m., I wasn't sleeping.
Mm,
Intrusive thoughts. Okay. And
mm-hmm.
even though I was a breathwork coach, I knew that breathwork would activate my parasympathetic nervous system and kick out those stress weeds. But do you think I could do it? Absolutely not,
Oh, no.
because the stress weeds were running the show and they had me so locked into this state. And so I got up and I was about to do either self harm, drugs, alcohol, maybe all three. And I looked at my left thumb and I said, Tim, you can take one breath. Take one effing breath. And I drove it into my chest and I went, oh my gosh, that worked. Take two breaths. And I drove two fingers into my chest. Oh my gosh, that worked. Okay, three, three, three. Get to five, get to 10, driving in a finger after a finger after a finger. And then somewhere between 15 and 25 breaths, those stress weeds got kicked out. And the rest of my mind was, thank F you kicked them out.
Mm, mm,
Keep doing it. This is working.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so breath work is the quickest way to kick out those stress weeds. But you need to be aware that if you've been watering those stress weeds for a period of time, they have no interest in you accessing peace. Because if you were to access peace, that means they get kicked out and they scream the loudest before they die. A, a, a small example of this, you know what I mean here.
So they scream the loudest before they die, which you did two things. So instead of laying there in bed, you got up for one thing, and then you did some physical action, which was just this side of self-harm, right? It wasn't self-harm, but it was enough to kick you into it. I think that's one of the things that we don't do. Wayne Dyer, who's a speaker in the States, says, if you're laying there in the dark, afraid of the dark, get up and turn on a light, you know? Change the environment. So as you're kicking out these very loudly screaming stress weeds, what kept you moving? What kept you motivated to keep kicking them out?
Well, your peace becomes your power. Because I asked how many other versions of Tim in this scenario did take the pills, the alcohol, the self harm? How many other people have been in this same situation?
Mm-hmm.
And it's so I started creating these little recordings that I could just press play because breath work is it's conscious, but it's also unconscious. So I
Mm-hmm.
started creating these little recordings that if I just press play on, it would guide my breath. And just like an investment that you invest money into and you get $1,000 back, if every single time you invested $100, you get $1,000 back, you'd keep doing it. I'm like, this is predictable. So I would press play on these things. It would guide my breath. I'm like, those thinking stress weeds we get kicked out. And I'm like, this is now predictable. This is now a pattern. And so I structured a company around that to allow people to simply be asked, what time do you want to sleep? What time do you want to wake up? And then be guided with their breath in those two things. So if I could give anyone two what I call micro habits, it's a few minutes of breathing to go to sleep, kick out the overthinking mind, give yourself the peace that you deserve. And in my case, as veterans, I say, you fought for peace, but are you enjoying it? They're not often enjoying it. And
Right.
so breath to go to sleep, but also breath to get out of bed to win that first 5 or 10 minutes of the day. Because I know my intrusive thoughts, if I'm lying there, it always tries to talk me out of things in the morning. It always tries to disasterize stuff. But if the first voice I hear is just breathe in, breathe out, my energy levels start rising. That lead that I'm feeling gets turned into gold. And I've usually found, Tanya, our minds think to the level of energy we have. If we only have a small amount of energy, we really have small thoughts. If we have more energy, more options. Um, and if I don't give myself the energy I need, then I still need energy, but I end up taking it from others. On a
Mm,
good day, on a good day, that might mean a cup of coffee. On a bad day, that might mean 6 beers and I'm an a-hole. Because
mm,
I'm
mm-hmm.
just as human. I'm subject to the same conditions, but I'm just aware of how to. I know I know the cause root factor. So if I can get into the cause of it, then the effect you're more in control of. But you said something really interesting because it's very much part of our human nature to be generous,
Mm,
you know. And I want to share. I did generosity wrong for a
mm,
long time because
mm-hmm.
I've been blessed to have a wonderful, my mum and dad were overseas missionaries, very
Mm,
generous people. And an example of how generous my mother was an example. I was in her backyard recently and I saw she had one of those little gerbera daisies, little pretty gerbera daisies. And it was sticking out of this plot. And I'm like, Mum, you bought a gerbera. And she's like, no, I found a pot plant. And I'm like, what do you mean, Mum? You found a pot plant? He says, well, I just knew there was something good in it. So I watered it. And 8 weeks later, that came out.
She's giving it the opportunity to grow.
crazy. I'm like, we both laughed out loud. I'm like, it makes no sense, but then it's a perfect example of some people that are so incredibly generous naturally, and I couldn't be like that. So my work in the veteran space was highly successful. I had a lifetime goal of saving 40 veteran lives from suicide. I didn't care if I worked the rest of my life to achieve that, but that was achieved within 12 months because of some very successful programs I created. But
Hmm.
what nobody knew in that space of me being generous, I was giving of myself. I wasn't giving of my abundance. Okay. And I'll show you
Got
how that
it.
works. So,
Yeah. Okay.
so if
Talk us
I'm just
through it.
adequate, if I'm at 100%, I noticed if I gave 10% away to somebody else, there was a part of me said, well, I want a certain outcome from that. I'm down to 90%. You better do something with that. And I expect you to do this with it. And
Mm-hmm.
so what nobody knew is every 6 or 7 weeks, I'd have to write myself off drunk for about 3 days just to
Oh.
somehow bring about balance. Okay.
Oh. Okay.
Didn't stop,
Yeah.
didn't stop me being effective, but I'd still have to wipe myself out with this alcohol because I was giving of myself. I wasn't giving of my abundance. And so
Got it.
these days, my saying is, I don't give of myself anymore. I give of my abundance.
Woo! I love that. So we've been talking about the empty cup theory for a while of, if I want to give you some oranges, well, I have to have oranges to give you. I have to either go procure them, grow them, do whatever, give you the oranges to give you. So if I want to give you part of myself, but I'm at empty, I am stealing from the next day or the next day or the next day. And the theory that we've been working with is not only do I have to learn how to fill my own cup, I need to teach you how to fill your cup too, so that we're both overflowing. So I love this abundance concept with that. So we talked about stopping the stress reads, and then you talked about creating this energy of abundance. How do you give you're giving your 10%, your 20% over and a top of your 100%?
Yeah.
How are you creating that level of energy?
Okay. So the idea is if I, instead of me generating 100% and being adequate, if I generate 500%, I can give 20% away a day. People can love me, hate me, tell me to get lost. It doesn't matter because I am in touch with something so much greater than what can be taken from me. And
I
that's about the
love it.
most powerful statement I can say because
So you've filled your 100%,
I
but you've
feel my
asked for
500%.
abundance way over that, meaning
Yeah.
that you're not going to have to struggle if people say, Tim, that's not really what I needed, or that's a bunch of hooey, or I don't like that.
Yeah.
You don't have to
So
struggle
giving of
anymore.
your abundance means the thing that you find joy in creating, like like whatever everyone's got an abundant gift, strength, whatever that is, something a lot
Mhm.
of. Like if you look at me, I'm a physical specimen, very physically capable. Thank my mum and dad. All right. So it's very easy for me to help old people at the shops. It's like whatevs, right? But if I was in a wheelchair, that would actually be really hard.
Mhm.
Okay. It's very
Mhm.
easy for me to take bins in off my neighbors. It's very easy to look after a neighbor's dog. So that's an easy way for me to be generous and serve of my abundance. And so the idea is find the thing that gives you joy, multiply that out, and then of that abundance, give of that. Whatever that God-given gift is that you have, master that connection to that powerful thing that you have, because then that way you're at 500%. And it doesn't matter what people, if because the problem I had and the reason I used to have to wipe myself out was I would give myself, well, if I haven't done this much with all this generosity, if it hasn't done what I expected it to do, and then that would be a burden on my shoulders. And some, I tell you now, Tanya, some of the nastiest people start off as very generous people,
Mhm.
and life
Mhm.
just takes, and then they go, no, no more. I have to protect
Mhm.
myself, you know.
Mhm.
So
When you're looking at this, I talk about this a lot. Very generous people have very clear boundaries.
mhm.
So when you're looking at, the stress weeds has really got me going.
Oh
when
yeah.
you're looking at the stress weeds that you're laying down with, and then I think it was a key point you said you're getting up with them too. And that can zap your whole day, and you come in with low energy. How how do people create that habit when chaos is happening? In spite of the chaos, they're
Yep.
able to create the habit.
Okay. Everyone tends to go big on this one, and I actually say go small because it's one thing to do powerful and positive, rah, rah, rah. It's another thing in the silence of your own heart to create a very small, easy, and effortless, what I call micro habit.
Okay.
And the most powerful micro habit you can have is connecting to your breath, going to sleep, and then in the morning, connecting with your breath and your body before you get out of bed. And even to make it even easier, go to the mirror and say certain words of affirmation. And
Mm-hmm.
it's one thing, and I only got introduced to this in the last few years. And I remember sort of looking at myself in the mirror and saying these things. And I remember thinking, this is the stupidest thing I've ever done. But then I'm like, I can't ignore the fact that I feel like my brain's getting rewired and connected here. There's something actually going on. And
Right.
and there's a saying in the army, if it's stupid and it works, it ain't stupid. You know.
Right.
And,
Right.
and so for me, the most powerful thing you can do is improve your sleep, because sleep is the soil from which everything grows. And it's not just about sleep, because just like sleep has a cumulative detriment if you don't get good sleep, it accumulates, right? There's an
Mm.
accumulative benefit as well. And what I sort of see is, you've got seeds of greatness inside of you, seeds of uniqueness. And those seeds are going to lay dormant in that soil until the energy levels raises up to a certain point. So it's one thing to say you need to be flourishing in this area of your life. You need to have fruits in this area of your life. It's another thing to say, well, let's look at where we grow out of. Let's improve that energy level first, because then natural things start happening, like an accumulation of good energy. All of a sudden, you start flourishing. And that's sort of what makes me excited about what I do, is I help people discover just how wondrous their own body is, and then just how incredible the gifts God's given you that are in there. But you do need to um, get to that point of abundance for those seeds to grow, and they'll happen on their own. It'll happen easy and effortlessly. We're made to flourish, but it won't happen in a low energy state.
So tell us, lay the bed, the groundwork, the soil. Okay, we've talked about breath work, but what else do you need for that solid sleep? I mean, we can go to bed, but what do you need for the solid sleep to have those abundant seeds really be effortless?
Okay, one of the best things you can do is understand that as humans, we are wired for light.
Mm, mm-hmm.
So when you see that first frequency of light bursting over the horizon and nothing between your eyes and it, no glass, no glasses, when that light comes over the horizon and goes through your eyeballs, that does a number of things, one of which is synchronize all your internal clocks.
Huh. Okay.
Fun fact, and nobody knows about it because it's free. And if you've ever had the experience of you turn the light off, you're in bed, that then part of you still running around the place, it's
Mm-hmm.
because not all of you is in sync. So in the special forces, before after an orders group, would always sync up our watches to the second off the commanding officer, because you can imagine if someone was 5 minutes late, that would make a massive impact.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
having all your internal organs, all your circadian rhythms in sync, and if you can do a little bit of breath work at that first light and get as much skin as possible in that first light. It's called azimuth light, where the light is your shadow is longer than your body. So
Okay.
if your shadow is longer than your body, that's called azimuth light, and that's the healthy light that sets you up and your body actually needs. In fact, we get a lot of nourishment from the sun. So having that first light, a bit of breath work, one of the most potent, natural, uh, empowering habits you can have. Like I said, I've got, and it is a lifestyle thing. If you can have those small micro habits as part of your lifestyle, It's lifestyle that'll get you out of problems because it's lifestyle that gets you into the problem to start with. We tend to think, oh, something, I've done it before. Oh, something's wrong. I'll do a 3-day workshop and somehow that'll fix it because, and then a week later, nothing's changed, right?
No,
So,
no.
so small things regularly. And if people are interested in creating a lifestyle out of it, I've got a very easy online resource that they can use. We're currently giving away a month worth of free sleep. So that is there. I'm not just espousing this. And I do want, even if we have to do a part 2, I do want to show people how to completely relax their body and mind in 3 breaths.
That would be awesome. I got a question before we do that though. So
Yep.
I get up before the sun.
Great.
I have a sunrise clock that
Nice.
starts and does that, and I hate noise. So I don't want an alarm that beeps at me or anything like that. That sunrise, I don't want to hear anything in the morning. That sunrise clock comes up, and then I do my meditation, and then truly I get on the computer because my work starts that early. But when you get up before the sun, should you then go and find that first light? Because I could stop and find that first light for a little bit. What would be your take on that?
Ideally, like if I look outside my window right now, I've got a ladder leaning up against the roof. And I'll climb that ladder. I'll get on my roof because I'm not in a place where I can see the sunrise easily, but I'll get on my roof because I value that so much. And of course, there's a part of me that's a little like, oh, what are my neighbors going to think? But that dissolves pretty quickly when you get into what it is to breathe and connect with that divine energy. Do you want to do you want to what gods do you have before God if you're going to go down that way? Okay. If
Right.
because I can either play on the level of human concern, or I can jump into the clouds, lock arms with the maker, and have a party.
Right.
I
Who
choose
am
the
I
party.
trying to please, God or
Yeah.
man? Right.
Yeah. So so
So,
so
so,
I kind of yeah. I like getting on the roof because that's a deliberate obstacle for me to get over. You know what I mean?
so most of us were not special forces. We're probably not climbing on the roof, right? And for me, I'm in Colorado. It's the middle of winter too. What would you suggest? Flinging back the curtains, making sure you capture that to the best of your ability.
Yep.
What's something simple?
Okay. Yes. As long as there's no, ideally, there'll still be benefit looking through a window, but you want a naked eye exposed to that light. And where possible, as much skin as possible exposed to the light throughout the day. Because that sequence of colors, even if it's just you're seeing the sequence of colors, that gets your body ready for waking up and getting into the day. So it turns off the melatonin in your brain and opens everything up. And that sequence of sunrise colors is in reverse at sunset, and that turns on melatonin. So a lot of people are taking melatonin pills. You don't need to. If you simply look at the sunset and that sequence of colors, that turns on the melatonin, turns on the, okay, time to rest and digest, time to go inside the cave, time to be with my loved ones, time to go into my comfort zone, all is well. And you've heard 1,000 people say, don't look at screens, etc., etc. If you have to, normally on most screens you have a filter on there, or you can get those sort of blue blockers. But look, those things are just hacks, Tanya. One of the hardest things people have when it comes to sleep is understanding that you actually become a different person when you're at rest than what you are when think of performance like a pyramid. Top of the pyramid, you're kicking goals, you're making your targets, you're doing everything you want to do. But the bottom of the pyramid is your rest, recovery, healing art forms. Now, a lot of people think my contribution is up the top of the pyramid. So think of an athlete running around a track thinking, well, people love me when I'm running around the track. So my sense of self-worth is attached to how fast I run around that track. Now, this is where it gets dangerous. If we attach our sense of self-worth, which essentially is our center of gravity, to something we do, then it's very hard to disengage from what we do, because if we're doing nothing, then we are nothing, because who am I if I'm not running around that track?
You have the American problem right there. of if I'm not performing, how can I be loved? How can I be cared about? How can I be loving someone else if I'm not doing some kind of performance? But you have an answer for it.
So understanding that, giving yourself permission to be a completely different person. And the only way I've been able to get around this, because think of, there's a target you want to hit. I love hitting targets, right? But think of a bow and an arrow. When you want to hit a target, the arrow actually has to go away from the target
Mm-hmm.
to create momentum to hit the target. So on my days, I call them, on Sundays, I do a super slow Sunday. So if it takes
Mm-hmm.
me 5 seconds to walk across the room, I'll give it 30 seconds to walk across the room. And for the first hour or so, my head's just exploding because I'm like, I want to be somewhere else. I want to be somewhere else. But then when you actually drop back into this moment and your body's like, oh, you're listening to us here. Let's relax. Let's heal. Let's recover. And and so I call that a bow day. The days where I'm not performing and I'm deliberately doing nothing, that is creating momentum for me to hit my targets for the other 5 or 6 days. So
Mm-hmm.
when you understand and when you see the self benefit, then all of a sudden you can go to the bottom of the pyramid. Because if your self-worth is attached to what you do and how you perform, then you're going to start saying things like, oh, at 30, I'm over the hill. At 40, I'm over the hill. At 50, I'm over the hill. Yes, there is, because you're not resting. You're not
Got it.
resting and recovering. And looking at it from the perspective of like different personality types, there's those high performers at the top of the pyramid. They look at the people at the bottom of the pyramid and go, oh, they're lazy. They're not doing anything,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then the people at the bottom of the pyramid look at the guys at the top and go, look at them. They're working hard. They're not enjoying themselves.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So having that, seeing your sovereignty and your self-worth and genuinely seeing it before anyone else does, and not having needing affirmation from the outside in, will allow you to drop into the bottom of the pyramid, or what's called your parasympathetic nervous system. And when you can truly drop into that and truly accept yourself, all of a sudden we tap into our self-healing, self-regeneration. The art form of self-regeneration is allowing yourself to be that completely different person, have it all about you, and you will be able to do what God made us to do, and that is self-heal,
Mm-hmm.
regenerate, cut off an arm, grow it back.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Mm-hmm.
something blocking my connection with the divine. Well, we can remove it.
Yes. And sleep is one of the ways that our brain removes that.
Yep.
Is we dream, we do the processing, we do the things we need to do. But you and I have both been in that situation where you're not getting good sleep. There's extra things going on, or there's somebody else in the bed. We've got kids in the bed, something like that. So when you look at this and you say, okay, how do you give yourself permission? This is what I did yesterday. I got into a chair at 12 p.m. yesterday and I read a novel for the rest of the day. Now, it was a little bit hard not to feel guilty about it, but it was Sunday and I needed that downtime. I needed to go away and just be here. So, how do you stop the voices that say the house needs to be clean, laundry needs to be done, this needs to be taken care of? How do you begin to
Yeah.
slow
Yeah.
those guys
Well,
down?
firstly, understand what your predictable future is. When you have an inbox of things to do, right? And let's say you clear that, but then something pops up. Again, as soon as we clear that, something else pops up. And I thought, well, I've just got to get faster at clearing that inbox. Clear it, clear it, clear it. But then the
Mm-hmm.
faster I cleared it, the more things popped up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So understanding the predictable future of chasing the next thing, got to do, got to do, got to do, got to do, or telling yourself a lie saying, look, I will be able to relax when it's all done.
Yes, that's a
You get
huge
that?
lie.
You
Yeah.
get that? Because you just find more things to do. And so seeing the predictable future of, if I just keep doing, I'm just going to keep doing, and I'm going to die with all this manic energy. And it's not going to, and guess what? It's not going to die with me. This manic energy isn't going to die with me. It's going to be paid forward to my kids. I'm going to train them to mirror my energy. And if I don't have kids, I'm going to pay it forward to everyone I know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm busy. What are you doing? I'm busy. Blah, blah, blah. And so I'm only sort of giving that stick to understand the carrot, because a lot of people haven't given themselves permission to be that person that is actually self-loving.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yes,
know,
because if my kid's not okay, my husband's not okay, my parents not okay, then I can't be okay, which is a lie, which is absolutely a lie. It's a biblical lie because God says you're not okay because everything's okay. You're okay in spite of the fact that everything is crazy.
yep, very well put. And because that's worshiping another God, essentially. Your sense of self-worth is attached to someone else, some other thing, you know, as
Or my
opposed to no.
busyness or my ability to save, my ability to connect, my ability to this. But what I've forgotten to connect to is me. So talk us through
Sure.
3 minutes or three
Oh, three
breaths,
three breaths. It's just going to be three breaths, and you will
three breaths and
complete. And
relaxation.
okay, and a little tip is that they're three proper breaths.
Okay.
Okay, and they're easy and effortless. But I just need to ask three questions because breathing is our oldest habit. But I ask everybody to consider the possibility that for your whole life, you've been doing it wrong. And these three breaths are going to bring you into a whole new realm of possibility. But I need to ask three simple questions for people to get the most from this because there's a lot of good here and we just have to let it in. So the question I'm going to ask you, Tanya, and I invite the listeners to take this on too, is Tanya, do you give your body full permission to be completely nourished by your breath?
Yes.
Awesome.
Okay.
Tanya, do you give your mind complete permission to be absolutely nourished by your breath?
Yes.
Do you give permission and do you allow your subconscious mind to be completely nourished by your breath?
Yes.
Awesome. So this is really simple. Simply breathe in and out. Congratulations. Now, if you did that and you're listening at home, being aware of your breath is the first thing, first step to your peace and your power. Being aware of your breathing. Because when we focus outside of ourselves, we forget about our breath and we shallow breathe. So if you saw someone going, they're about to freak out. And whether you're breathing shallow, fast, or slowly, you're sending a signal to your whole system that you cannot relax. You're in fight or flight. You see how
Yes.
that works? So
Right.
being aware of your breath is the first step towards your peace and your power. Now we're going to build on this very simple thing that you've just done. So when we breathe in, I just want you to breathe in again and again and again and again. Can you do that? So breathe in more, more, more,
Yeah.
more, more,
Mm-hmm.
and just let it out. Now, this will actually be really good to clear that cough, it's fine by me if you need to hit mute on this point, okay?
Okay. Yeah.
But but did you notice that there was a bit of extra space opening up in your top third when you breathed in more, more,
It's
more?
right here. Yeah.
Okay. So for the sake of giving that a name, Tanya, we're going to call that breath up here, when you breathe in up here, your secondary inhale. Your primary inhale is where you normally breathe in and out of. Your secondary inhale is that top third. So let's try and smooth this out. Let's try and blow it out and then breathe in through your primary and then breathe into your secondary. You make it nice and smooth. Breathe in, and then just let it out. So I'm more than happy. Like I said, if you're more comfortable having it on mute, this is sort of just talking and walking through it. So you've got your primary, you've got your secondary. Now, what I love about my job, Tanya, is I show people how wondrous their body is. Now, we all have bodies, but we just don't know how amazing they are. And what a lot of people don't know is that in your thumb and two fingers, like if you make a pinching sort of you know, action, they're
Mhm.
actually turbo buttons for your secondary inhale.
Huh?
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to exhale, but then when we breathe in, we'll go past our primary. When it comes to our secondary, we're going to pinch those fingers as hard as we can and we're going to see what happens and how that impacts our secondary inhale. Okay. So if you're listening, just blow it all the way out, 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 out. Start breathing in, and then hit those little turbo buttons and see what that does to your secondary inhale. And then if it feels good, let it out with a sigh.
I'd love to let it out with a sigh. But I can feel all that expanding across the upper chest up in there.
Yep.
I didn't
Yep.
even know that. That's great. That's awesome.
So these are little sort of power buttons. Now, we're gonna juice this up even more. Okay, I'm going to show you how to open your lungs up in a way that most people never do. If you breathe poorly, you're pretty much killing every organ you have, every function you have. Conversely, if you breathe well, you are making them more healthy. You're living longer. So I always tell myself when I'm doing sunrise breath work, if all I had to do was a bit of breath work to hold my grandkids for another 5 or 10 years, would I do it? Hell yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
So we're gonna juice this secondary inhale up even more. So when we breathe in and we hit those turbo buttons, we're gonna raise our chin and our chest as we hit those and look up. Okay, so we're gonna hit those turbo buttons and raise our chin. Is everyone cool with that?
Yep. Let's do it.
Let's just blow it all the way out, blow it out, blow it out, blow it out. Out, 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 out. And then start breathing in. Hit those turbo buttons, raise the chin. Open, open, open. Hold it, wriggle it around the place. Wriggle, wriggle, wriggle. Wriggle, wriggle. And if it feels good, let it out with a sigh. And Tanya's doing a really good job of removing the blockages. Okay.
Yeah, I need to be doing that because you can feel the back spine open up, and then you can feel that rib cage spread apart, because what do we do when we're in front of the computer? We use that hunch.
Yes.
And so there's nothing in there that can open that up. That's awesome.
Well, you're not just getting more energy from your breath, Tanya. Think of, we're electrical circuits, and our electrical circuits travel on these nerves that are like hose pipes. So when you step on your garden hose, you pinch off the amount of flow that comes out, right? When we're hunched over, we're pinching those nerves and stopping the energy that we have going through our whole system. So proper breathing, giving you proper alignment, allows us to have the proper energetic state.
So these are sunrise breaths. Do I use these
are what we're doing right now is anytime you need a reset, because this secondary inhale, I actually call that the breath of possibility. And there's a reason for that. When I've got stuff in my head that I don't want there, I notice that I'm like, oh, weight of the world on my shoulders. They hunch forward.
And I'm over. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have these little turbo buttons here that if I'm kicking around in public and I've got something in my head I want to clear, if I want to get back to myself, I will discreetly breathe in and hold it up there and move it around and let that energy push out the crap that I don't want there. So breath of possibility. And this little turbo button here is the circuit breaker, or a bit like a medicine pump. You know, like in the hospital, sometimes they give you like a little morphine pump. This is your little morphine pump for the day. Organic, inbuilt. People learn that it's not a set of lungs that we own, Tanya. It's a medicine cabinet with a lot of different shelves. You breathe a certain way, you elicit a certain response. When I'm working with high school students, I show them how to, breathe through their exam stress and apply themselves academically. Corporates, they like an afternoon wake up. Some people, there's a certain breath to get you to sleep. There's a certain breath that gets you out of bed. This is a medicine cabinet God gave us. And people just don't know the wondrousness that's in there. And that's what I get excited about, just showing people the thing that there's, our bodies do a whole lot more than just carry our eyeballs around,
Right. Okay. Absolutely. Tim, this is delightful. I'm going to have you back because you've got more to share with us. I know it.
We're only about a third of the way through that breath, because there's a whole lot more in that we can juice up. But if you have to wind it up now, I can include, because I call this the breath of peace and possibility. So I'll include a little link that people can have a look through, that they can access this peace and possibility. Like I said, it's something right now we're just talking about it, but if you actually experience it, then you're like, oh, that's an experience beyond words.
That's awesome, Tim. Let's do a second episode. Thank you for being here. I can already feel my lungs beginning to clear, and I've been fighting this for 2 weeks now. So I'm going to start practicing this, but I can't thank you enough. Tell us where we can find you.
Okay, so 3 words, breath work in bed. If you want to make a lifestyle, if you want to have that breath going to sleep and breath waking up, just simply go to your app store in your phone, 3 words, breath work in bed. I've made it for people that are tired. They're tired because they've got so much on their plate. So if you just tell it when you want to sleep and when you want to wake up, we take care of the rest. It'll easily and effortlessly fall out of your phone at sleep. So you just hit that notification, press play, and in the morning, your alarm will go off. You'll see that notification, press play, and I can't do what you do, but if I can help you sleep better, you're going to be able to do what you do better and bring your gifts and flourish into the world.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much.